If you've ever considered a Christmas markets river cruise in Europe, you're going to want to watch this video. Hey everybody, welcome back to Cruise Report. Today we're talking about a river cruise we just got off of. We did 7 nights from Amsterdam to Basel on Viking River Cruises, on Viking Eistla actually, one of their Viking Longships. This is the 8th Viking River Cruise that we've done since 2003. We've done about 13 Viking cruises in total if you add together the river and the ocean. We have a lot of experience with this brand. Our first river cruise with Viking was back in 2003. They didn't even have the Viking Longships back then. I don't know if there's another cruise journalist that has as much history with Viking as we do. Maybe there is. If so, if you know somebody, put in the comments down below. I'd be curious. So we've watched this brand grow over the decades and kind of develop. They didn't even have ocean ships back then. They didn't have expedition ships. All they had were river boats. The growth of this company, they have over 100 ships in their fleet overall. It's really incredible growth. So our question was, our last cruise with Viking River was in 2017. I believe it was on Viking Alruna. I believe it was also a Christmas markets cruise. And we have not been on Viking River since then. And so the number one question we're curious is it as good as we remembered from 2017? Because quite frankly, most cruise lines have taken a downturn as far as quality and service, and everybody's complaining now about the price of cruises. You don't get as much as you used to get. So we were real anxious to know if Viking River has maintained the level of quality and service that we remembered from 2017, because that was back before COVID. The second thing we want to know, which we always want to know on this channel, and that is Viking River Cruises good for adult couples? Because we travel as a couple. We don't travel in a group. We don't travel with kids. So we want to know, is this a good option for you if you and your wife, you and your husband want to travel, or you and your partner, or you and your friend want to travel as an adult couple? So those are the things we're going to look at. Now, I've kind of broken this down into pros and cons. Here's the things after 7 nights on this trip, and we went to Cologne, we went to Dordrecht, we went to Freiburg. If you want to see the itinerary, check out our blog at CruiseReport.com. You can see day by day where we went, and we write an article every day, a blog every day with photos, and tell what we did that day. So if you want to know more details about the day-to-day, that's really the best way to get it. So we've broken this down into pros and cons, things we liked, things that cons would be things not necessarily that we didn't like or that are bad or that we hate, but things that maybe could use some improvement or things that just weren't quite up to par. Anybody that has followed this channel, we've been around doing this for 20 years. Anybody that follows this channel knows that we're going to tell you what we liked. We're going to tell you what we didn't like. If you've ever been on a Viking River cruise in Europe, please put it in the comments down below. I'd like to read your experience. I'd also like to know what you agree with that I'm saying about this cruise that we were on, or what you disagree with. If you had a completely different experience, or if I make a mistake, I might say something that's incorrect, let me know in the comments down below. I read every comment, and I'll try to respond if I can. So I'm going to go through the positive stuff first. Here are what I consider to be the pros. River cruises, generally, it's easy embarkation because the ships are small. Typical river cruise ship will hold anywhere from 140 to 190 people. So you're not dealing with thousands of guests. So it's a much easier embarkation process, but that's one thing that's nice. You get out of in our case, we took an Uber over to the ship, And within 5 minutes, we were on the ship. You go to the reception desk, you get your key card, and that's it. You show them your passports, obviously, and your ticket or whatever they scan. And that's it. It's a simple process. There's no security or lengthy issues like you would have on a large cruise ship. Another pro, in our opinion, is just the design of these Viking Longships. First of all, I mentioned earlier they have 80 Viking Longships. I know they have 60 Longships. There might be some other ships they have that are riverboats that aren't considered Longships, but they have over 60 Longships in Europe, and they're all virtually identical. And they've done this same concept with their ocean ships as well. All of their ocean ships are virtually identical. So when you're booking a Viking cruise, your concern is about the destination, not about the ship, because you're going to have the same exact experience no matter which ship you're on. That's a very interesting, no other cruise line I know of really has taken that approach to their ship design. And they did a masterful job of designing these Viking Longships. I mean, they're not only are they beautiful on the inside with that kind of that Scandinavian decor, which is very understated, very elegant. It's not in your face. It's not flashy. There's no bright brass or chrome. It's mostly wood tones and tan leathers, and like I say, very Scandinavian decor. So when you get off of a Viking River or Longship and you go next year on another one and you go on a completely different ship, you're going to feel right at home because they're identical. The lounge is in the same place, the restaurant's in the same place, the menus are going to be pretty much identical. Everything is where you expect it to be. So it's a very comfortable cruise line to sail with multiple times. So part of that ship design is the lounge, and this is kind of the main public room on the ship. This is where all the activities are. There's a daily briefing in there every evening. This is a place you can go and sit when the ship is sailing down the river. You can sit. There's windows on both sides. Comfortable seating, leather seating, just beautiful on the inside, very comfortable, very casual experience. And you can just kind of sit there, enjoy a cocktail or a cup of coffee in the morning, whatever. And really, the lounge is just one of the most comfortable places you'll be. There is a bar in the lounge. It's a full service bar in the evenings. So you can sit there and enjoy some snacks before dinner, listen to the daily briefing, and then generally after the daily briefing, I think it starts around 6 or 6:30. And then usually at 7 o'clock is when everybody is invited to the restaurant for dinner. Now the restaurant, which is one deck lower, it's down on deck 2, is very nicely appointed. The restaurant is, very elegant tablecloth. There are windows in there as well, so you can see outside while you're eating. Sometimes in the winter it's going to be dark, so you're not going to be able to see anything. In the summertime, when the sun goes down later, you can see the river go by as you're having dinner. It's very nice. Typical staterooms on a river ship are going to be smaller than what you would find on a lot of traditional cruise ships. Now they have suite categories that are larger. I think our stateroom is about 205 square feet, and that included the square footage of our veranda. We were in a veranda, I think it was a category B, and they're small. They're smaller than what you would expect on a typical cruise ship. Not all cruise ships. Some cruise ships have very small staterooms as well, but they are very, very well designed, very comfortable. All of the appointments in the stateroom looked fresh and new. I should point out that Viking Eistla, our ship, was built in 2016, so it's almost 10 years old. And honestly, you couldn't tell it. The ship has aged very well. The carpet looked fresh and new. The furnishings looked fresh and new. I'm not sure if it's been through some sort of a refit or refurbishment recently, but it really did. You wouldn't know that you weren't walking onto a ship that was maybe 6 months or a year old. It was in that good of a condition. Everything in the stateroom worked. The shower worked properly. We had good HVAC. We had, in fact, I did a stateroom walkthrough. If you're interested in that, I'll put a link up here in this video where you can watch me walk through and show you all the features of the stateroom. It was also very quiet. We never heard anything from our neighbors. We never heard any sounds. Occasionally you'll hear something if you're going through a lock outside and the ship might bump the wall of the lock. You might hear that. But generally speaking, it was a very, very quiet stateroom. And to their credit, Viking still does 2 stateroom services per day. Our stateroom attendant, Bianca, was amazing. She would come in the morning after we had either gone to breakfast or if we were off on a tour, and she would make up the room. And then in the evening when you go to dinner, or in our case, maybe we go to the lounge, whatever, we're out of the room, she'll come in again, make sure the bed's made up, change out the towels, do a second service. A lot of cruise lines are getting rid of that second service, and we're very pleased to report that Viking still does 2 stateroom services per day. Now, when we talk about bar service, Viking offers free or complimentary wine and beer with your meals. So at lunch and dinner, you can have a glass of wine, you can have a beer, you can have a glass of sparkling wine. They're very, very generous with that. They do that on the ocean ships as well. So you don't spend as much money on drinks as you might on other cruises. It's not in fact, I think even the owner of Viking says Viking is a thinking man's cruise, not a drinking man's cruise, because people are there for the destination. They're there to explore, or they're there to see the countryside and get off the ship and see what's going on. You also don't have days at sea on a river cruise like you do on an ocean cruise. So you're usually off the ship every day during the day, so you're not sitting around drinking. Now, in spite of that, they do offer a drink package, and their drinks were very reasonably priced, I should add. I did look at the menus. I felt like the drinks were right in line, maybe even a little bit less expensive, but they do have a drink package called a Silver Spirits package. We went ahead and got that just because we think it's a convenience more than anything. And you know, if you drink 1 or 2 cocktails in the evening in the lounge or after dinner, it probably pays for itself. The pricing on their Silver Spirits package is very reasonable compared to other cruise lines. It's actually what a drink package should cost. So it's very reasonable. But even if you don't have that, I think you're not going to spend a ton of money on incidentals or onboard charges, because they're not nickel and diming you on a Viking cruise like you would get on some other cruise lines. Now, another pro, have to mention it is adults only. Viking does not allow children under the age of 18. Nobody under 18 can be on the boats, ships, ocean, river. We love that. We like an adult experience. And I mentioned to you earlier about how we always look for, is this a good thing for adult couples? And that's one of the biggest things, is there's no kids on board. There's really nothing for kids to do. They would be bored on a river cruise compared to a traditional cruise ship with rock climbing walls and arcades and all that other stuff. The last pro I'm going to mention is the staff and the crew on board our cruise. Andrea was the bar chef. She was amazing, always smiling. She remembered our drinks after the first day. She always knew what we wanted. Alexandra was our favorite waitress. She always took care of us for lunch or dinner or in the lounge. The hotel manager, Gabriel, was probably one of the most engaging hotel managers we've had on any cruise. In fact, one night we were skipping dinner that night. We were just sitting in the lounge, enjoying a cocktail, not bothering anybody. Everybody else on the ship had gone to dinner. We were just sitting up there by ourselves, enjoying a cocktail. Gabriel happened to walk through, and he saw that we weren't at dinner, and he was concerned. He said, "Do you not want something to eat?" And I told him, "No, we had a big lunch. We're really not hungry." And he said, "Well, maybe I could bring you something. Let me bring you I think it was a crab cake." And I felt guilty for not eating anything, so I said, okay, bring me a crab cake. So he brought a crab cake up to the lounge, and I sat there and ate the crab cake. It was delicious, by the way. But sometimes we just don't go to dinner. Sometimes we eat big lunch. I already mentioned our stateroom attendant, Bianca, did an amazing job. She kept our room perfectly clean. We really didn't hardly see her. We would see her in the hallway every now and then, and she would ask us if we needed anything. And we loved the 2 services per day. And last but not least, program director Emma was really engaging, very involved in everything, really kept things moving along. We've had a lot of program directors in the past on Viking, and they've all been good. We've never had one that wasn't good, and Emma certainly falls into that category. We were very pleased. And I guess I should also mention Captain Sebastian. For a captain, he was more involved than most captains are. He was always around where you could talk to him if you needed to, and very engaging as well. But before I get into the cons, let me just qualify this. We had a great time. It was an incredible cruise, and we certainly don't regret doing it. We loved it and would love to do it again. We'd love to go on Viking River again. But here's a few things that we're not crazy about. Some of them are just Viking River Cruises in general. Some of them were specific to this particular cruise. Let's just talk about it. The ship can feel a little crowded when it's at capacity. Now, the Longships hold 190 people. We had 181 on our cruise, and it felt crowded. In the lounge, in the evenings, when everybody's in the same room, it does start to get a little noisy and it feels a little crowded. 2 places where you really notice this. One is in the lounge in the evening. It can actually be a little hard to find a place to sit. Now, they have plenty of chairs, but you might have to get there early is all I'm saying, if the ship is full. The other is in the restaurant. The restaurant has no tables for 2. They're either tables for 6, 8, or 12, or however many. And we feel like people tend to maybe scope out their favorite seat and their favorite table with their group. They establish a relationship with early on, and they want to sit in the same place every night. Since we don't go to dinner every night, we went to dinner the first night, but we didn't go back the second, third, or fourth night. And when we go back on the 5th night, you can tell everybody's kind of picked out their table and their place and their group. And we didn't have a group because we didn't go the second night. I wish they had tables for 2. Now, if you do want to sit at a table for 2, you can do so in the Aquavie Terrace, which is another one of the pros I failed to mention. The Aquavie Terrace, which is forward of the lounge, is an alternate dining venue where you can have breakfast, lunch, or dinner, but it's very small. There's only a few tables in there, and there are 2 tables for 2. So, and I think there's a couple of tables for 4. So that's an option which we took advantage of because we like to sit by ourselves. It's not that we're antisocial necessarily. It's just when we travel as a couple. We like to sit there and enjoy dinner. We don't want to feel like we have to be entertained, or we entertain other people, or regale people with all the cruises we've been on. Then that's generally, after 150 cruises, we've heard every cruise story there is to hear. We've told every cruise story there is to tell, and so we're at a point in our career, our cruise career, where we just like to sit with each other and have a nice quiet meal together, and the restaurant is not conducive to that. Aquavie is, but there's only a couple of tables for 2, so you have to get there early. Make sure you get your table. In fact, you probably have to go during the daily briefing and sit down at one of those tables for 2 so that when everybody goes to dinner, you've got your table. I wish there was a way Viking could figure out to have more tables for 2. The second thing was in our stateroom, which was very nice. It did have some USB ports, but they're all over on the left side of the desk where they plug in the QuietVox units for charging. And everything's very crowded over there already. You got a phone, you got a QuietVox. So if you want to plug in something to charge up a camera or some other device, that part of the desk gets really crowded in a hurry. Now, you could have a very long USB cable going to the other side of the desk, which is where the chair is. So that's where you put your laptop, but you'd have to have a 7 or 8 foot long USB cable to do that, which I don't have. You can, like me, you can carry an adapter with you, which I do, but on a modern ship, you'd like to have more USB ports. So when they go through a refit, I wish Viking would consider that. Also, I couldn't find any USB ports next to the bed. So we had to use electrical adapters and come up with USB for power that way as well. The other thing is, on a Christmas markets cruise, it's usually this time of year. It's cold, it's rainy a lot. You really don't get to take advantage of your balcony. I don't think we ever sat out on our balcony. I think I stepped out on the balcony one time to take a picture, and that was it. It really is almost wasted on a wintertime cruise, because during the day you're off the ship, and when you get back to the ship, it's dark out, so you can't see anything. In the morning when you get up, there's a likelihood there's going to be a boat docked next to you, so you can't see anything then because you're right next to another boat. So we felt like the balcony is kind of wasted. Another con on this particular itinerary, on this particular cruise, is we never got the opportunity to just get off the boat and walk into a town, maybe have lunch or just explore on our own. Every place we stopped required either a motor coach to get into town or a lengthy walk, like in Cologne, where we had to walk maybe a couple of miles across the train bridge to get into Cologne. We were docked on the opposite side of the river. And last time we were in Cologne, we were docked on the side of the river where the cathedral is, where we were docked on the city side. And you could just basically walk off the boat and walk into town. You know, it was easy. So everywhere we stopped on this cruise, it seemed like we were always having to either take a second boat to get across the river or take a motor coach to get into a town. And we kind of missed the flexibility of just being able to, you know, instead of maybe going on a tour, maybe just say, we'll just get off and walk into town and do a walking tour on our own. We really didn't have that opportunity. So that was a little bit of a con. Now, let me know in the comments down below, have you experienced the same thing? And maybe this is a result of the fact that there's so many riverboats now compared to, 7, 8, 9 years ago, the last time we went. Maybe that's why. Maybe the river is so crowded, they have to dock in different places than they used to be able to. I don't know. So that's really all the cons I can come up with. Based on our memory, I went back and read some of my reviews from 2017. I can't tell that Viking River has really taken anything away from this cruise experience since COVID. I can't say that about other cruise lines. A lot of other cruise lines used to provide services that you no longer get or you have to pay extra for. The experience that we had on this trip on Viking River was pretty much the same experience that we had in 2017, and that was a good experience. So kudos to Viking. They've maintained the same levels of service, and they're not nickel and diming you and charging you for things that you used to get included. It's basically the same. Now, their prices might be a little higher. A glass of sparkling wine might have been €6 in 2017, and now it's €9, but that's just the economy. Now, I do want to mention a couple of optional excursions that we did experience. One is a dinner in Rudesheim, which we have done before. I think we did it back in 2017. And it's a German restaurant in a German town, and it's very noisy and raucous, kind of a party atmosphere, a lot of live music playing. When we did this in 2017, the restaurant we went to, and I'm going to have to look it up and see if it's the same restaurant, it seems like they were playing German music. But on this, they were playing more Americanized music. It was more of an American music, which I thought took away from the atmosphere a little bit. I was hoping more for the traditional German type music that you would expect. But it was still fun. We had a good time. Meal was good. Now, that excursion is $139 per person. I want to make sure, though, I'll put it on the screen. I'm going to look it up again. I can't guarantee it's $139. It might be 139 euro, but I'll look that up and I'll put it on the screen for you. Anyway, I'd say it's worth it if you are on this Rhine cruise and you go to Rudesheim and you have the opportunity. I think they do it year round. I don't think it's just a Christmas thing. But if you have the opportunity to do the dinner in Rudesheim, I think you should do it once. I don't think we would do it again. We've already done it twice now, and I see no reason to do it a third time. It was fun. I'm glad we did it, and I can recommend it, but I think it's one of those things you have to do one time. And then after that, you've pretty much experienced it. The second excursion, I believe, it's either 85 euro or $85, and that was the I'm from Texas, so I don't know how to pronounce these things. I think it's Giggenbach or Gingenbach. I think it's Giggenbach. And it was an optional Christmas markets Giggenbach tour where you go in the motor coach, you get to this little, very quaint, very charming little town, and you're kind of on the main street where all the shops are, and they've got the Christmas market set up, and they have a city hall. It has the largest advent calendar, they say, the largest advent calendar in the world. I have no reason to dispute it. A great little Christmas market. We found some souvenir shops open that we were able to go to, and it was just a lot of fun. We really enjoyed that. I think it was well worth the additional cost to do that. Giggenbach? I'm going to call it Gingenbach. You tell me in the comments down below. Am I mispronouncing the hell out of this thing? Anyway, definitely well worth it for that additional excursion. We did 2 or 3 other included excursions, which were good. Our only complaint was that on some of them, it seemed like we spent more time in the motor coach getting to and from the town than we did where we had time to spend in the town. We were so far away, like in Mannheim or not so much in Freiburg. Freiburg was okay. But there were a couple of places where it took us a long time to get to the excursion. And we don't remember that from 2017. That was a new experience. Let me know in the comments down below if you've had a similar experience. We seemed like we spent a lot of time in a motor coach getting to and from these places. So now it's time for my final assessment of this Viking Christmas on the Rhine cruise with Viking River on Viking Eistla. What do I think? Well, at a time when most cruise lines are cutting back on services, giving you less for your money than what you were getting before COVID, Viking's not playing that game. They've gone a different direction, which they've been doing ever since they've been in existence. They always go in a different direction, and it's always a direction that's to your benefit. You're still getting the same consistent product that you were getting 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and it just continues. And the cruise line continues to grow. That's why I am a stockholder. Another disclosure, I'll tell you right up front, I own Viking stock because I believe in the company. I believe that this company is it's already gone places, but I think it's going to go even bigger. There are very few signs, if any, that they've cut back on anything. I couldn't really sit here and think of anything that we got on our Viking River Cruise in 2017 that we did not get this time. In fact, I'll mention one more thing that you get now that you didn't get in 2017, and that is the Starlink Wi-Fi. This was the best Wi-Fi. I forgot to mention this in the pros. It was the best Wi-Fi I've had on any cruise ship, period. River, ocean, doesn't matter. This was the best, most reliable. Even going through locks and under bridges, usually on river cruises, the Wi-Fi and the internet is terrible. but it was rock solid. I was even able to upload YouTube videos, and their Wi-Fi is free. They don't nickel and dime you and charge you for it like they do on a lot of cruise lines. So kudos to Viking for not just keeping the same quality that we've expected over the years, but they're actually improving things. It's getting better. I'm glad we got to go. If you have any comments about this video, please put it in the comment section down below. If you have any questions about the cruise that I failed to cover, which I always leave something out, just ask me and I'll do my best to answer it. And if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up, because that really does help our YouTube rankings. We're obviously trying to grow our audience, as every YouTuber is. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you on the next Cruise Report.